Yes, you asked, don't we want to clear after we click send? That's what I was about to ask you next. Let's do that. So typically when we send something, we want to clear this, right? If it's successful, right? Typically, this would call the backend server, and we need to see if the server approves it, if it's successful or not. If it's successful, we can clear and then inject. Because we're doing something very simple, we're not calling the backend to inject a new message. So this is very silly. But okay, when we have the send click here, after we, either before or after, doesn't matter. Let's say for everything's successful, you want to clear the new message. We want this to be empty. Does anybody want to take a shot what you would write here to clear the input of the new message? Start S, E. So what variable is associated with value there? Yeah, so the value is new message, but we want to call the function set new message, but it's a function, so we must call it with parentheses and empty string, either single quotes, or double quotes, doesn't matter. You almost got it right, but the syntax is different. It's parentheses because of function. Okay, let's try. Hey, whatever, send. Okay, injected and cleared. Nice. So typically in the real world, what would happen is you would call fetch here, make a request to the backend. Oh, hey, I want to add a new post. And then it would say, okay, you're fine. You can do this. Otherwise, or they could send you an error. And then we'd have to handle the error. Maybe we would show an error message here and all that kind of stuff. We have to show a loading state, meaning, okay, after I click send, I want to disable the button. I want to show some sort of loading state, maybe. And when I get the response, that's when I enable the button again. And if there's an error message, I show it maybe here at the bottom. I mark this red or something. Stuff like that you can build upon this project. By the way, should we always use fetch in useEffect? Yeah, so if you need to fetch data in React client side, make sure to do so in useEffect, because that's the whole point of useEffect, is to do side effects, and the loading of fetching of data is a side effect. You want to take that a little bit outside of the rendering, because the problem is React, it keeps rendering all the time and calling the same function, right? The component function keeps getting called because there's so many interactions and state changes. So it keeps reacting. And if you had the code for fetching data somehow putting there, every time you render, it's going to fetch data, fetch the data. That's not very efficient. It's going to be a mess. So that's why they made this thing for side effects. Okay, if you need to fetch data, kind of outside of the rendering thing, you have to use useEffect. Yes, you can use multiple useEffects, as many as you want, and you can add different dependencies here. Maybe you can react to different things. Maybe some other variable in the app changed somewhere, and you want to update something because of that change. You want to react to the change in certain state variable and do some side effect. That's when you use useEffect. You would put a variable here. If this variable changes, this function for the effect will be called to update whatever you need to update in response to the change in this variable. So you can have multiple useEffects. That's totally fine with different dependencies. Maybe I depend on something else, and when something else changes, I do something about it. In the world of class-based components, what React used to do, this useEffect that's only called once after the first render is componentDidMount, the lifecycle. The other one that gets called every time something changes is the lifecycle function componentDidUpdate. So if you ever work with React class-based components, componentDidMount and componentDidUpdate are the equivalents of the useEffect. So React is rendering all the messages every time. It only renders when there's a change. So it calls render, or call this function, when there's a change in state or the props given to the component. So it reacts to those changes and renders again. But it's not always rendering all the time, if you're asking if that's the case. No, it's not always calling the render function itself. It only calls when there's a change in state or props. Yeah, React has a virtual DOM compared to real DOM. Yeah, there's always this two kind of things that it keeps comparing to determine if the actual DOM in the browser will be changed to be updated with the React tree. All right, so I think that's it.